This is from Jessie. She sent in another JSTOR piece. JSTOR takes me back to my grad school days. So this is from JSTOR. Jesse points that out. Return of the JSTOR, what the prisoners' right movement owes to the black Muslims of the 1960s. Interesting. All right, this is JSTOR, which means this article is probably 3,000 pages long, so we're going to have to skim it. What the prisoners' rights movement owes to the black Muslim of the 1960s. In early January, the state of New Jersey reversed a ban on Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, in some state prisons after the ACLU raised objections. The incident highlighted the growing movement for prisoners' rights and against mass incarceration. Interesting. I've never read that book. I'd be curious to read it. But long before Alexander identified prisons as sites of institutional racism and inhuman treatment, legal scholar Christopher E. Smith explains black Muslims, African Americans affiliated with the Nation of Islam or other black nationalist Muslim organizations, use similar arguments to build a framework for prisoners' legal rights. So Jesse points out JSTOR Daily is mostly a summary. Fair enough. This is a JSTOR Daily article. Some of those articles are super long, though. Academics, they like words. I remember, it's so funny. I remember when I was in grad school where it was like, if an email was anything less than 4 paragraphs long, it was weird. And then it's like you get out in the real world and most people just don't email that way. And like when I first got out of grad school and was like doing comedy full time, I would email like, agents and bookers and stuff. And I would send like these long emails because I was just still in that mindset. And academics like words should be on a shirt. I'm on it. I'm trying to I'm getting some t-shirts printed soon. So I will keep that in mind. But yeah, I would send these long, and then a friend of mine was trying to get me in with her college agent, and I CC'd her on the email, and she looked at the email and she's like, "What the hell are you doing?" Like she's like, "These people are so busy. These people make phone calls 8 hours a day, send emails like another 2 hours a day. They have meetings, they have other clients, these are very busy people. What the hell are you doing sending this long ass email when I just made you an introduction? Here's how you do it." And she sent me like this 2-sentence thing. And she's like, "Please do that." Anyway. So, let's move on. Sorry to get diverted there. Smith writes that until the 1960s, courts didn't take much interest in prisoners' rights despite the protections against cruel and unusual punishment theoretically offered by the Eighth Amendment. Smith notes that it might seem a bit odd, a movement led by figures like Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X would affect legal changes. Black Muslims were an influential force in U.S. prisons as early as the World War II eras, when sub-movement leaders were incarcerated for refusing to serve in the armed forces. When prisons proved unwilling to listen to their complaints, incarcerated black Muslims turned to the courts and lost most of their cases. In a 1961 case, for example, correctional officials admitted they did not honor the right to worship for Muslims as they did for other religious groups. I never knew that. That's really fucked up, but not at all surprising. The California Supreme Court allowed the discrimination on the grounds that the Muslims' philosophy and behavior threatened the prison. Wow. But, I mean, that's not... And in other religions couldn't be considered threatening if you're saying that... Yeah. What if somebody was a far-right Christian and somebody in the prison with them was gay? Isn't that threatening too then? Couldn't that also be considered threatening? Why is it just... well, I don't know. But thanks in part to a larger social and political changes happening in the 60s, courts were not uniformly hostile to the cases brought by black Muslims. In scattered cases, they managed to win legal rights, including rights to worship. So they did, yeah, because I mean, honestly, if you're going to say, oh, well, your religion threatens the safety of the prison, I mean, you could make that case for any religion. Like pretty much any religion has an element of danger like when you really dissect like what is taught and stuff like that, you can kind of spin anything to say, well, this has an element of danger, this has an element of discrimination, or this has an element of, you know, some type of jihad, you know, or whatever verbiage is used for that in any given religion. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not saying, so you can't take the right to worship away from some, even though they did the mental gymnastics necessary to do so back in the 60s, which isn't surprising, but people stood up. Black Muslims stood up. So they got the rights to worship, they got the right to wear religious symbols, and to be free of punishment for their faith. Some of these cases had implication beyond the Muslims themselves. Between 1964 and 1971, cases initiated by Muslim prisoners won the right for prisoners to sue state correction officials. It also limited correctional officials' ability to interfere with communication between prisoners and their lawyers. And it constrained prison officials' discretion in banning literature as inflammatory. Over the years, these victories changed prisoners' relationship with the legal system. For example, Smith writes that by the late 1980s, imprisoned people were filing tens of thousands of civil rights cases a year in federal court. And as the recent New Jersey incident shows, while there are many ongoing injustices in the prison system, today's correctional officials can't simply prevent prisoners from reading about them. That's very interesting. I did not know about the history of Black Muslims in obtaining better prisoner rights. And as the article points out, we still have a long way to go. We still have a long, long way to go. I mean, we basically still have legalized slavery and prison labor, where prisoners are fighting wildfires for about $1 a day. So we still have a lot of racism in our justice system. We all know that. So we still have a long way to go, but that's very interesting that in the 60s, Black Muslims were very much a leading force in obtaining some of the better prisoner rights that we do have now that we did not have back then in the 60s. Hey guys, thanks for watching. That was a clip from Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. What does that mean? That means I log on to a stream and people tweet me articles over on Twitter at Ron Placone, or they use our Reddit subsection, which is just Get Your News On with Ron over on Reddit. And that's how we build the show. I'm seeing all these articles for the first time. We are literally getting our news on together. Follow me on Twitter at Ron Placone so you can participate. And this show streams live every Tuesday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So please do tune in. If you want to support this show, you can do so over on patreon.com/Ron Placone, where for as low as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive podcasts every week, exclusive videos, free tickets to shows when I'm performing in your town, and more for as low as $1 a month. Please do consider it. Thank you so much for your support. This has been Get Your News On with Ron.